Yeah.
One of the things that we mentioned earlier on was paternity in Nigeria and how that has changed over time. I want to understand more how that has changed. I read somewhere that in the past that when people want to do paternity tests in Nigeria, they send samples abroad. Is that
Yeah.
true? And
Yeah.
how has that changed now with next generation sequencing that is now a common thing?
Yeah. So back in the days, I mean, even up until now, the only there was a lab, I think that Lagos State government started back then that does this DNA forensic testing. It was only until recently that we got to know that maybe they don't even do all the testing there. I mean, I don't want to misspeak so that I don't get flagged in case your video goes viral. But like, I was very happy to see that development by the Lagos State. That was the first DNA forensics lab that would have been established. It was many years ago. I used to follow them and probably maybe even try to reach out to them sometime. But when you don't have a name, they don't even answer you. So, but that was when I was working as a DNA technician at my DNA lab in Florida. But then it was later and I got to know that I mean, even when they need it for to conclude a case with law enforcement, they still maybe need to send a sample out, or maybe that the technology was not that adequate still. Right, so I think back then they used to do this capillary electrophoresis to assess the short tandem repeats that are being amplified from those cases. And then, yeah, they might be able to do that, but then you might need next generation sequencing for parallel amplification, and things like that. So it's a more, um, higher advanced technology, all right, that my friend's lab is the first to start, where I'm the chief scientific officer. Right. So then they compare when they do paternity testing. They are not into DNA forensics for law enforcement applications now. They are not doing crime scene samples yet. But what they are doing is they are trying to just do paternity testing, which is another aspect of forensic DNA analysis. So they just try to match sample of a child with the father and try to see, right, if there are, matching alleles, right? The hypothesis for a diagnosis or a conclusion is that if there are no two mismatches, then potentially maybe 99% of the time the paternity is the father's, all right? But if there is more than two mismatches, so then there's a question that, okay, the paternity of this sample or this child is questionable. So yeah, I mean, there are newer technologies that could actually help to, refine and get a test to a more acceptable level. Because everything is still based on statistics. You could get a 99 chance that the paternity is the father and it could still be wrong, And some instances, I mean, if you're dealing with a twin situation, which, I mean, could not really give such levels of high incidences or rates like that. So, yeah, they used to send samples out, right? Because the technology needed wasn't maybe affordable by those organizations and institutions back then, but they were still doing it. I mean, a couple of labs sprung up even in Abuja area that I used to read about that do all those paternity testing. But
Wow.
oncogenomics lab, which is my friend's lab, when we actually worked together at the IVF clinics in Lagos, then he delved
Mm,
into paternity testing. He's doing all manner of testings now. So he is the first to actually use next generation sequencing. And he got the Illumina MySex or Forensex is the
mm,
equipment he uses to help do parallel amplification. You actually get to the raw sequences that you can analyze, and they have specific markers that they
mhm.
target. All right, and it's doing pretty good. So I go through their results at least every now and then, that they have samples to work on, they pass the final results to me just to help them evaluate as well. So, and they're doing pretty good. So at least I mean, in Nigeria, at least I know that there is a lab. Now we want to see how they can collaborate with other advanced labs where they can actually even do more testing, maybe get into crime scene investigations as well. They could be useful for the court so that they don't wrongly accuse someone who is not, who wasn't at a crime scene, but that
Mhm.
has just been labeled or picked up by the police, just so that they can close the gates. If there's no if there's no DNA sample to actually exonerate them that I wasn't at the crime scene, I didn't contribute to that. So many people have actually had wrong convictions by the court. So DNA forensics is, I mean, the next level of you actually doing the right justice, right, for the masses as well. So
Yes,
that's why some
yes,
of those labs are springing up. Yeah. Mhm.
yes. I mean, that's very important you share that because even here in America, you have cases of people that have been in jail for 30 years, and after 30 years, you just found out that they were not they had the wrong
Yeah.
person. And like,
Their DNA samples exonerated them. Yeah, the DNA technology itself is pretty new. When we're doing biology, Watson and Crick, when did they discover DNA? 1960, right? So, and even before they knew the structure of the DNA, but before the technology started springing up, like PCR technology, where they used to amplify DNA, that didn't happen until like 1980s. All right, so 1980s, 1990s, the right equipment that are needed for you to sequencing the DNA sample, you know, before they were able to do the map the human genome, it wasn't until the 2000s, right? So it's a pretty much new technology that is still advancing, but then so many wrong convictions have happened in the past that their
yes,
DNA could have exonerated them. And that's why some of those DNA tech applications are now springing up to help the criminal justice system to also help efficiently do their job well as well.